There's nothing wrong with making money on what you do. In fact, you should. For me personally, I just don't focus on that, because if I focus on that, then I lose sight of what's important, and that's helping other people. I know the importance of making the money. I don't make that my focus.
Sometimes it's about the people you're on the journey with that matters the most. That's what I want you to pay attention to as you listen to my conversation with Adam Bird, the founder and operator of the podcast network, Heroes Media Group. This isn't just a conversation with another podcast network. This is actually a masterclass on finding your purpose. Through my conversation, you'll start understanding how Adam, through his background, whether it was his start in radio to creating this network over the last 10 years and how he sees it going in the future, is actually going to help you understand what your purpose is. Should you join a network? What kind of operations should you be running? How you should run your actual business? Can't wait for you to listen to this. I'm Greg Wasserman, the host of Podcast Network Insights, where I get to bring you the heads of podcast networks, because I spent the last 5 years talking to nothing but podcasters and podcast networks. And I believe that life is about time and relationships. And through these relationships, I get to bring these conversations to you, whether it's a podcast network who's operating from a niche or someone that you know and a big network out there. You get to start in understanding how these networks actually operate and what you should be thinking, whether it's stay independent or join a network. So sit back, relax, take some notes, and enjoy this conversation with Adam Bird of the Heroes Media Group. All right, Adam, the show's called Podcast Network Insights. What's a podcast? What's a network? You run a network. So when I say that, what comes to mind?
Run a network? Just a series of podcasts, podcasters, podcasting's been around, as you know, since like 2005, 2006. I look at, the word podcast has changed, I think, over the years. It wasn't in the early years, it wasn't really called a podcast. It was more internet radio or, blog talk was another, phrase that was going around at the time. I look as a pod, and even now, podcast now you see a lot of video and people are calling them podcasts. So I think podcast really depends on the person. The definition, my definition is going to be different than yours or whatnot. And personally, I don't think anybody's wrong. I think podcast is just it's a entertainment source that anybody can gravitate to at any time.
I like it. You're right. Everyone's answer is going to be different. That's why I asked, running a network, being in the podcast space for the last 10 or 11 years. So you've seen it change. You've also seen your business change and evolve. So curious what you conjure up when I hear that.
I started this journey in 2012, and at the time, that business was for veterans only. And in 2015, opened it up to kind of what we call community heroes, if I may. Law enforcement, firefighters, first responders, educators, clergy, military, and veterans, all alike, right? And really, I started on this journey because I wanted to change the way media was delivered and consumed without, I'm not an IT company. I'm not creating anything different. I'm not that smart. But I wanted to focus more on the positive stories as opposed to a lot of the negative stuff that we see on what people would call mainstream media, right? And then it started collecting other podcasters that believed in my vision, and then that's how the network kind of evolved since then. So a lot of the people that are on Heroes Media Group, they support the community heroes, or either one avenue of them or all of them. And they want to make a difference in the world and share more of the positive things that are going on as opposed to the negative.
And I appreciate that, for you, thank you for your service. And for those that are in the network that support, thank them for our service. But I guess, as you said, you started this years ago, but your background's actually, you started in radio, correct me if I'm wrong. So let's take a step back. Like, how did you start even a podcast network in the first place? Yeah.
My background's more sales and education. So I cut my teeth in this business doing terrestrial radio. I went on a radio show in Scottsdale, Arizona, and this would have been around 2011 timeframe, 2012, 2011. And I was asked on to talk about military education benefits because that was my kind of my forte for many years at that time. And so I went on and asked some questions. I had never been on the radio before, and it was a lot of fun. It was kind of neat. Went in on a Saturday, sat down, got some questions, and I'm talking to 3 million people, and I got they got some good response, and they asked me to come back 2 weeks later, and then it was 2 weeks became every week, and then every week eventually turned into co-hosting it with the other two gentlemen at the time, and then one of the guys happened to be a friend of mine that I served with, and we were just like, man, there's so much we want to say that we can't say because of certain rules and regulations, and the guy in the back couldn't hit the beep button fast enough. So we decided that we were gonna start our own thing, and that was kind of how I got into it. It was, had you asked me, you know, 12 years ago if I ever thought I'd be in the, entertainment business or doing podcasting or radio, I would have laughed at you. I would have thought you're crazy. And now I can't think of doing anything else.
What do you love about it?
Man, that's a dangerous question. I'm really gotta careful how I want
You
to.
love it. You love it so much in a sense that like you built a career. You just made that comment. Yeah.
It allows me to help other people get to where they want to go. And sometimes I think sometimes we get behind the mic. You can wear a mask and you can kind of escape reality depending on the type of show that you have. And other times you get on there and you're authentic, you're your true self, and there's people that hear that. I've had people email me and call our business number and leave a message, and somebody I've never met before, I've never heard of before, and thank me for saying something that I've said or whatnot, and it made a difference in their life in a positive way. And I realized much later in life, as you can see, I got a lot of gray here, that as I've gotten a little more seasoned in life, I was kind of a late bloomer, and I realized kind of in my late 30s that I felt like my purpose in life was to help other people get to where they wanted to go, because helping other people made me feel good. And I felt like that was something that I would never get tired of, trying to feel good. And so it was almost like looking ahead, like I think Matthew McConaughey said it once in a skit, I don't know, but it was like looking at yourself 10 years from now, right? And trying to be that person, knowing that you'll never be that person because it always gives you somebody to chase. And I think that's really kind of cool. And I've always been very hard on myself. I've always set unrealistic goals, and what most people tell me, like, oh, you're unrealistic. Great. I take that as a badge of honor. Most people will be like, oh, you shouldn't do that, blah, blah, blah. Usually when somebody tells me I shouldn't do something, like, I'm the type of guy that does it just to prove I'm wrong. You know what I mean?
I hear you on that one.
So for me, I say that I can't imagine doing anything else because I get to help other people with creating this platforms and, you know, um, trying to. I'm crazy enough to think that I can change the world.
So I guess with that point, I'll go two different directions. We'll start with one, helping other people, serve other people. You've got what now, 100 shows on the network. So what is it that the network's doing and providing from a not just the audience that you're amassing to help the listeners, but the shows that you bring on and continue to support them in that way?
Well, we don't have that many, but I appreciate that. I've helped hundreds over the years.
Okay.
We've got about we're over 50 shows right now that are currently on the directory. Um, but with that, what are we bringing on? Was that the question? Like, how are we helping?
Yeah, how do you operate? Tell me about the business and what about Heroes Media Group?
So really, Heroes Media Group, it started as a directory. It just started off as a podcast platform where it was just like, hey, come join this directory, and it was like we know who the 800-pound gorillas are in the business, right? And I looked to see what they were doing, and I know all of them. I know most of the executives at those companies, good companies, and one of the things that I found was they're not marketing people or marketing the shows because there's so many of them. I get it, right? So I wanted to do that. So I started marketing the shows. I do a what we call now the HMG Weekly Wrap Up every Friday morning live, and I talk about current events or whatever, and just throw my 2 cents in on the world, and then I talk about what the shows that did episodes that week. I'll take those episodes and I give a brief on what those episodes are about, and then we tag them in afterwards. So they're getting that extra exposure that they normally wouldn't have had. Um, and that a lot of they like that. That's a big selling point for us is, "Hey, this guy here is gonna help brand our brand." Um, and in doing that, created a big network. We got shows now in the network that work together and have created other businesses and stuff together. And that's the cool thing that's what it's about, right? Helping other people get to where they wanna go, and that's how it started, and then eventually we turned it into people asking me, "Hey, can you edit this for me?" I'm like, "Sure." I didn't go to school for this, but, I've done enough of those episodes over the last decade now. I think I just surpassed 28,000, that I've worked on personally. So it's like you know, I've figured out the audio side of it, to say the least. Am I an expert at it? No, I'll be the first to tell you I'm not. But we ended up creating a full agency out of it. So now anything that's related to podcasting, whether it's video editing, audio editing, we do, short reels for people, we graphics people, the whole nine. So whether you've got experience in podcasting or you've never done a podcast, I'll walk you through that process to get started if you're a first timer. So
And then I guess, how do you guys make money? Where's the financials come in for the network?
that's a great question. I haven't figured that out yet. Right now it's a lot of hopes and dreams. And no, we charge. There's obviously a monthly fee to be on the network, to have a show page on the network, and whatnot. And then we charge for our production stuff. So anytime we got to touch the episodes and do the production side of it, we charge for that. So that's where the revenue comes in for the show. And then we do have some sponsors for the network that we've been blessed, to companies that believe in what we're doing and want to be a part of that. And they see the mission, so they'll sponsor the network for they'll pick a package and that works for them and go that route.
So if you started off on the, I guess, directory community side and where you've come now 10 plus years later, would you look at the network and where the business is more of a it's a community like-mindedness. You're not coming to join this network to be rich and famous from podcasting. It is, I have a podcast. I agree and align with your values, with the values of those in the community. And this is a great place for me to get the exposure that I need.
I think that last part is the big thing, is getting more exposure. More importantly, being a part of the mission and being a part of that overall vision that I shared earlier about just creating a positive environment. I've got shows that are on the network that aren't monetizing at all. I've got shows that are paying their mortgage off of podcasting. So the money side of it isn't. I don't focus on the money, believe it or not. This is just going to shock most people. I don't focus on the money. I focus on the purpose. If you focus on your purpose, profit and everything else will follow. That's how I do life now at my age, is I focus on my purpose. My purpose is to help others. Greg's got a podcast. He wants to join HMG. I'm going to help everything I can to make sure that you're successful and get what you want out of this. That's my purpose. People that believe in that, that's why they join the network, because they see that we're making a change. We didn't get to where we are in the world today overnight. This has been most of my lifetime. I'm in my late 40s. For me to think that I'm gonna change the world tomorrow, it's ignorant. I know better than that. I've been doing this for over a decade, and I'm just maybe starting to scratch the surface a little bit. I'm not going anywhere unless the good Lord calls me home. You know what I mean? I don't plan on quitting this. I didn't create this business to grow it up and to sell it. That's not my goal either. You know, I'm in this for the long haul. You know, I want to be able to, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when the world becomes a better place and people are being more positive. And I'm not saying like, whoa, is, unicorns and rainbows and all that other stuff, kumbaya. It's just like when things are better and people are being human to each other and being respectful to each other, they're going to look at the core of that and they're going to see companies like HMG, myself, and the people that were involved that started this trend to make that change.
So then when you look at, because what you're describing, I've had, I mean, that's the whole point of this show is I have these conversations with others like yourself that now I get to bring on, but I've heard the same stories from others. And then you also have the flip side of those, I guess. If you're non-capitalistic and others are very capitalistic and you're still making money and they're like, "Great, how do I either create more revenue streams from this, whether it's IP or selling it," right? It's a completely different business model. So when you look at the business model you've created versus some of those others, like there's enough room clearly in this business for both. But like, what do you think when you see that other business model? Is it I should be doing this, or like good for them? Like what goes through your
Good
mind?
for them. I'm a capitalist. I like money. I got bills to pay. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with making money. God, I hope people are making money if that's what they want from it. You know what I'm saying? I don't for me, I've chased the dollar and I kept chasing it. It was never enough. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let me be clear. There's nothing wrong with making money on what you do. In fact, you should. For me personally, I just don't focus on that because if I focus on that, then I lose sight of what's important, and that's helping other people. If I can help other people, the money has always shown up. Like you look at the last decade, I've traveled the world. I've gone to a lot of cool events. I've gone to Super Bowl, Final Four, NASCAR. I've done all these cool things, right? I've spoken on stage at events that you and I have attended together. I shouldn't like why? Why me? You know what I'm saying? Like I'm nobody special. I put my pant legs on one leg at a time, as I assume most people do. I could be wrong. It'd be first time today, but whatever, you know? It's one of those things where it's like for me, do I wanna make money? Yes, because I need to keep this machine going. I know the importance of making the money. I don't make that my focus. That's just my mindset. Nothing wrong with that other business model. If you wanna build a company and turn around and sell it, God bless you. I hope you're successful at it.
So if someone was looking at joining your network
Yeah.
or looking at joining a network in general, I mean that's part of the audience that's hopefully listening is understanding like why what's your network and B should I join one? What would you tell a person who's trying to evaluate should I join yours or one of the bigger guys or should I just stay independent?
Great question. First off, thank you for that. My network's Heroes Media Group. If you go to heroesmediagroup.com, you can see a list of the shows there. Here's why I think it's important to grow a network. Whether you join Heroes Media Group or another network that's out there, here's why it's important. Because you get to utilize the people within that network. You can't let me tell you something. There's a lot of successful people in the world. Show me one person that got to where they are at without the help of somebody else. You need the network. You need it. You want a network. Because here's the thing, many hands make light work, right? And if you join a network, the cool thing about and I'm speaking from the HMG side of things, that I've seen people within our network. I've seen the show hosts go on other shows, and then they cross promote their shows, and now you've got audiences that you didn't have before because you went on another show within the network and so forth. Being a part of a network, we help our shows get into media events and stuff like that. I help them get into covering sporting events or whatever their forte is. You don't get that in a lot of other networks, and they don't teach you how to do that either. unless you go to school for it. I do that. I take the time to teach people how to do that because that's part of me living my mission.
And so I think from what I'm gathering, and if we put our, other network hats into the way, I mean, and also just what I've heard from others who have been part of a network, they'll join a network and then 5 months later, all the stuff that you're describing was kind of like, yeah, they did it at the beginning, but they don't keep doing it. Either they've added more shows so they can't give you the love and attention because they're giving it to another show.
Yeah.
So how do you find that balance, or what do you say to that person who's like, I've had that experience.
Ugh,
What Adam's saying sounds like what I got at the beginning, but it's not what I had before, or not what I had later on.
sorry. Sorry that you picked the wrong network. You ask anybody on our network, they'll tell you I'm available. Every show host in our network has my cell phone number. I get calls in the middle of the night. I don't always answer them, but I get back to them within 24 hours. I guarantee that when I'm signing them on, I say, "Hey, you're not a client. You're part of the family. So here's my cell phone number. Now I expect you to call me if there's an issue. I expect you to call me to set up a call if you want to learn how to monetize your show, or hey, I'm having trouble with this to troubleshoot something." I expect that from the shows. They're paying me a monthly to be on my network. The least I could do is to be there for them when they need me. That's my mindset. That's how I work.
It's and anyone that's listening, right? You'll hear what Adam's describing is community. He's accessible, So when you're looking at a network, it's what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? What kind of environment are you looking for? Maybe Adams is the right one for you, and maybe it's like, you know what? That's not what I need, or I'm looking for higher rates on my CPMs, someone to go do sponsorships, whatever it may be. That maybe you're like, all right, we're not the right fit, right?
Right. Yep. And I've turned away a lot of people because they weren't a good fit, or they weren't what they thought. Oh, I want to join. Well, why? One of the questions I had: Why do you want to join us? Was, well, I want this, this, and this. Okay, I get that. And there's been some people where it's just like, I'm not a good fit for you, but I'm going to help you, and I try to give them an alternative.
I'll take that thread. So an alternative, I mean, we've met multiple times
Yeah.
at podcast events. So as a person whose background was from radio, who's been doing this for 10 plus years and speaks at all these events, like as the operator of a network, where is your knowledge of what's going on? Like you live and breathe the podcast environment where most of your host on your network are turning to you. So where does that value come in, and how is important is it for you to stay on top of what's happening?
That's a I always give the unpopular answer. So I'm just going to stick with that because that's what I know. I've said some things that are confrontational in the past in the business, and I've always have found to be, and this isn't a flex, and this isn't to sound conceited, but I've been kind of ahead of the game in some of the things. I've been fortunate and unfortunate, so to speak, in that. As far as this business goes, the importance of staying what's up to speed with it. There's so many, we live in such a technological era that there's, as we're sitting here talking tomorrow, 10 new things are going to come out, right? And they're going to be the new thing in the business, right? Probably not. It might be a tool that maximizes X, Y, and Z, or X, but it's not going to maximize Y and Z. So it's important to see what's coming out, but it's also important to keep open mind that, if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of mentality. This is working. This has been working. 90% of people that listen to podcasts listen to audio. Why is video important? I called this years ago. I said, video will be there, but I don't know if that's going to take over audio. And people fought me on it tooth and nail. Where do people listen to podcasts? Mostly audio, but the video is important because most of the people see the 10, 15, 30-second reels to go listen to that audio. And that's why the video is important. So it's, and that may change tomorrow. You know, we don't know, and that's kind of the cool thing about this business, right? Because new things are always coming. There's always a new tool that's out there, and there's some cool tools that are out there. And we live in an AI world now where it's just like, okay, I'm not a fan of AI. I said it.
No, the humor is that's how we connect it over AI.
I'm not the biggest fan of AI because I think it takes some of the human side out of it. Now, that being said, having used AI myself over the last year, it is a tool, and it is a tool. If used properly, it can help you with a lot of things. But keep in mind, it is just a tool. It is not meant to take over everything for you. So that's one of the examples I have right there with what's going on in this industry. There's a lot of AI tools that are helping podcasters out, and there's a lot of great tools that are out there. And that being said, somebody once asked me, with all these AI tools, with the auto, click a button and it edits your video and all this other stuff. Yeah, take the human side out of it. That video is going to be wonky. I guarantee it. Same thing with the audio. It's going to get most of it, and it'll help some of the production side of it. But when it comes to production, we're old school. We do it ourselves. We don't use AI when it comes to production.
Makes sense. Quality over speed and efficiency. And you'll still have to be cutting twice, right?
Yep.
So I guess to that point, you've said you've turned shows away. What are the red flags as a podcaster that go up on your side, going like, I don't think this is either not even a fit for us, but not even you shouldn't even be looking at a network yet.
It's more, yeah. It's more the type of content. Any type of adult content, we don't do. If that's your thing, great. No judgment. It's just not. It's not on our platform. We won't do that. That's really the biggest thing. I'm very, very much, as I said earlier, I'm a veteran, so I believe in the First, Second Amendments. I believe in freedom of speech. I don't care what political aisle you sit on. I'm not going to tell you really what you can and can't say on your show. What I do say is, one, no adult content on our network, and two, don't be promoting stuff that involves hurting children. That's it. Just be a good freaking human.
Easy enough. Good rules to live by. So what red flags should creators be looking at when they're looking at other networks besides just yourself?
If a podcaster is looking at other networks and type of red flags they should be looking at, I would say if that network owns your content or not. If you are monetizing your show, do you have to give any kickback to that network? And then I would say those are probably the two biggest ones that come to mind. Make sure that you own your content, and then the monetization side of it, because I've seen that happen to other people before.
I mean, there's networks out there and it's part of their business model. It's like, I'll take a cut or I'm going to own the IP and part of their business. And the reason why you're signing with them is, great, I'm going to go shop this IP around so that we can turn this into whatever other medium it may be. That's probably why you're signing with them, or that's the allure of signing with them, right?
And that might be your thing. If it is, good, God bless you. I don't do that. I don't take money from my shows when it comes to who their sponsors are, and I don't own the content.
So then, do you find any value in, with the 50 shows you've got, the hundreds of shows you've worked with, not only serving them, but how do you create the partnerships? How do you create, if a podcaster came to you and like, Adam, this is what I'm trying to do. You're like, that's not what my network does. That's not what is in my job profession. I can't help you with that. Or you're like, no, this is a great project. This is a great idea. Let me see what I can do. Like, where do you find the draw and the line between serving and serving the business?
It's always serving first, because in doing so, that the business will come along. It goes back to that mindset of chasing the dollar or putting the purpose first, right? If you're living your purpose, everything else falls into place. So if you're serving the person, whether they're a fit for you or not, if they're not a fit for you, that's a blessing, first off, in disguise. And if you're helping them and they are a fit, and then they end up saying, hey, I'd like to join your network, it's because you took the time to help them. I don't ever make it about business. Sure, they're if they're a potential, great. Love to have you on the network. If it's not something you can do right now, it's understandable, but let me help you out, and this is what I can give you for now.
I mean, look, this is why we get along. You know, my philosophy is life about time and relationships. So for me, it's all about the relationships. It's all about the connection and being of service.
Because here's the thing, a no right now doesn't mean it's gonna be no later, right? And that person's gonna come back to you and remember, like, "Hey, this person treated me with respect, went out of their way to help. They didn't need to help me, and he helped me anyway. I know I can go back to him. I know that guy is." So that's the thing. You always focus again, and that's my philosophy. That's why I focus on help people get to where they want to go. That's my purpose in life. I'm living my purpose. If it turns into a business transaction, that's just an added bonus. It really is. Does it matter? Not really, because at the end of the day, I got to live my purpose, and that's what's important.
It's we could tell we're as you said, your background was in sales. You could tell we're salespeople in the sense of like, yeah, I'm here to sell a product, but ultimately I'm here to serve. And if I can help you with whatever you're trying to get,
Yeah.
whether it's my product or my network or whatever, it's like, yeah. And as you said, a no today doesn't mean a no tomorrow. So as long as we're getting along, like it's easier for a yes tomorrow.
If you believe in what you're doing, you will never have to sell your product. You only have to sell yourself. And how do you do that? Establish trust, create a relationship. If you can do that, you can sell ice to an Eskimo. Doesn't matter what it is. You know what I'm saying?
I got you.
Hopefully that doesn't offend any people.
I still use the phrase too. I get it. I don't know. Yeah. All right. So switching gears and kind of thinking about the future, right? You've been doing this for a bit. We've alluded to video and where that's going, audio first, but like what is the future of podcast networks as we look at where this business is evolving, where once again, what is a network, what is a podcast is evolving?
You know, from a network side of things, I think you're going to see some companies start getting bought out. I think you're going to see networks get bought out by bigger companies because the bigger companies don't want that competition. It's just like anything else that we've seen over the years, right? Would that say, do I have a number in mind? My number, if I said no, I'd be lying. So I don't want to lie to you guys. But my number is so astronomically large that I consider it stupid money, like to the moon or Mars type money. You know what I'm saying? Because I love what I'm doing. You know, I can't imagine doing and you know me, I've got several other businesses. I can't sit still. You know what I mean? And they're all tied in together. You know what I mean? As a podcaster, I think the future holds is just endless amount of opportunity. Podcasters now, from those that really want to, let me put it to you this way: those that want to monetize and make money, regardless of the amount of money you want to make, there's opportunity. More and more companies, big name companies, are starting to turn to podcasts. Now they're like, "Oh, I'm not Joe Rogan. I'm not Adam Carolla or Tom Likas or blah blah blah, whatever." I've made enough money, or I've paid my mortgages and both car payments on one podcast, and nobody knows who I am. If I can do it, there isn't a soul alive that has an excuse.
What's the secret?
You gotta work your ass off, man. You gotta work. You can't be lazy. You know what I'm saying? And you have to believe. You gotta believe in yourself. I'm crazy enough to think I could change the world, right? And sometimes that's all you need to believe. You got to bet on yourself. I took a leap of faith. I quit my corporate job and I did this full time with no money in the bank. I was a single parent. I was still in the military and I had a corporate job. Statistically, I should not be sitting here interviewing with you right now, but I am. And thank you, by the way.
Thank you for coming on. Yeah.
But it's one of those things where, like, if I can do it, like, people are like, it's too hard to do. Yeah, well, life isn't easy. I mean, is it the question podcasters have to ask themselves: one, do they believe in what they're doing? And two, are they willing to put in the work? And if the answer is no to either one of those questions, then you'll never get to where you want to go, period.
I think we see that on both our sides of what we do is how many podcasters want the easy button. And maybe that's probably a reason why they join a network thinking like, oh, if I join a network, I don't have to keep working. And it's like, no, you kind of actually have to work harder if you join a network.
I've talked more people out of podcasting than I have into it. It's a part-time job. People are like, what? No, it's not like you think just getting behind the mic, so anybody can do it. Okay, whatever. Shut up. No. You got to anybody can sit behind a microphone and talk. Anybody can do interviews. Sure. There's an art form to it if you want to be good at it. But then it's like, okay, I did a show, so I did my first episode, so now I should how come I didn't get 10,000 downloads? You kidding me right now? Like, you're not Joe or any of the names that I mentioned before. Like, what? I'd be happy if you got 30 downloads. You should be happy if you got 5. And those are your family members. Assuming they listen to you. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It takes time to get it. And you got to find your niche. But here's the thing. If you're asking me if this is worth it, absolutely. 100%. I'd do it all over again. Wouldn't change a thing. And I'd do it twice on Sunday.
So if you were to start your network over again today, you would do things the same way, or knowing what you know now, how would you change starting a network?
I would probably not add a whole bunch of things right off the bat. Like I'd probably build a few more shows before I just jumped right into, because we created a publishing arm shortly after and started doing audiobooks for people. That can be a pain in the butt. Yeah, and that takes a lot of time because I'm very picky on who I work with, and it ended up being, I didn't like what was happening, so I ended up being the one that was editing all the audiobooks, and that is very, very time consuming. As far as like, would I do it over again differently? I think I would do that. And then the other thing is, here's the thing. I turned away a lot of money. I've turned away 6-figure offers from people that saw in what I was doing and wanted to take the network to the next level. I've had several investors in the last 10 years come to me, and the biggest number I turned down was over $200,000. And I'll never forget this. And this is why I'm sharing this, because it's an important part of the story. The guy said, listen, this positivity crap doesn't sell. He said, you need to get into more of the negative stuff, because that's the stuff that's sexy and that's the stuff that sells. I said, I literally, it was wrong like this. I was like, yeah. That's never going to happen. You can take your money. And I had some choice words that I won't repeat. And I told him what he could do with it. And that was it. And I realized that I'm doing something most people don't have the stomach to do. It's never been done to the extent that we're doing it. So we're writing kind of the playbook at it. And I'm okay with that. So would I change anything? No, because if I did, I wouldn't be where we're at today. And we're in a pretty good spot.
I think that a true testament to you, but also if I think about it, podcasters, we're entrepreneurs. You've got to, it's ultimately a business, whether it's just two people behind a mic with no business. We just want to talk, but it's branding. There's assets behind it. It is a business, whether it's a hobby or not.
Yeah.
And you're proving that the joys of having a podcast as a business is you're an entrepreneur. You get to run it how you want. If you want to run it with negativity and that's going to sell, then great, you can go do that. If you want to run it as the positive network and who you are and what you've learned over your life, you can do that. And that's what I love about where I sit, is having these conversations with different operators, as different podcasters, and hearing how each of them is thinking about it in a very different way, but everyone's finding some level of success,
Yeah.
which I guess goes to, how do you define success? Like, what does success look like for you within, not in life, because we kind of gone there, but like for the network as a whole?
So that's a kind of a twofold question. So the network as a whole, success is, are the shows happy? Check. Got it. They're good. Because I do temp checks with them on pretty much a monthly, right? I would say the other part of it is the network living up to its mission statement, and ours is creating a platform for our community heroes to have a place where their voices can be heard where they normally wouldn't be heard. Check. We've done that. To me, that's, as far as the network standpoint. Success as a whole, my personal Adam Bird's definition of success is more of a question, is, are you happy? And if the answer is yes, then yeah, you've been successful. And it can be anything in life. If you define success as having $1 million, great. That's more power to you. I mentioned earlier, Greg, that I set unrealistic goals to myself. And people that have asked me, what do I consider to be successful? Or do I consider myself to be successful? I've always answered that question, no. But that was when I was younger. Now, in my time of my life, I was a single parent for 15 years. My son graduated high school with honors, graduated college with honors, is in a master's program now to be an Army chaplain. Was I successful? And if I've been anything in life, my success that I would want to be remembered by is whether or not I was a good father. And I think I can honestly say I've checked that box.
Great answer. And on all three levels of the questioning. And I mean, I don't know how to transition from there to right, on that one it feels like it's a mic drop, but we're not done. Well, I guess to that one, I guess I'll go to the fun questions, right? So like, what's one book that you would recommend, whether it's something that's helped you in life, it's helped you with this mindset shift, has helped you just in your career? What would be something you'd recommend, and why?
Book that I would recommend is Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Not a common one.
Never heard of it. Yeah.
Most people think of Napoleon Hill, they think of Think and Grow Rich. But Outwitting the Devil was written in 1934. And it is a conversation of him sitting down with as godly people who believe who the devil is. And I'll just leave it at that. And that book really changed my outlook on life as a whole.
You've heard that. We'll put that in the show notes. One podcast you think people should know about that's not your own.
Not my own that I host personally, or not on our network?
Not one that you host personally.
Okay. Oh, God, that's a tough one. The Arms Room.
The Arms Room.
It's called the Arms Room Show. It's a show that I initially started in 2013. It got taken over, and the gentleman that runs it is a good friend of mine. You think the Arms Room, the name of it, talks about firearms and stuff like that, and they do sometimes, but they do a lot of like prep, things to look for, and really just how to like protect yourselves and your home and your family. And I think it's a very educational type show, and they teach a lot about dirt medicine and things to carry in your car and stuff like that, for like just everyday things, because you don't know what could happen. It's a very educational type show that you can learn a lot from. That's the one that kind of comes to mind. There's so many of them, and I feel like you put me on the spot there. So, but that's the one that comes to mind.
I appreciate. Look, podcast discovery is difficult. That's why every Monday I recommend 3. I've got a newsletter, and that's another reason I do this show. It's like, all right, you get to bring on an entire network full of shows, and hopefully whoever ends up listening to this or follows any of the content goes like, I never even knew about this network. I never even knew about Adam Bird. I never knew about those shows or the recommendation you just gave, because we all know, working in the industry, growth is hard and discovery is difficult.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Well, I guess with that, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you'd love to enlighten anyone on, whether it's fellow network operators, those in the industry, or podcasters that are thinking about what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think for just podcasters out there, you're going to go through times where you kind of plateau, and you may even dip a little bit, and then you're going to have your highs. And just remember, the reason why you got into starting a podcast to begin with. And keep believing in yourself, keep having faith, and focus on your purpose. And I promise you, everything else in life will happen just the way it's supposed to. And then if you do that, you're going to see life doesn't necessarily get easier, but it'll be more rewarding.
Love it. Adam, thanks so much for joining me here on the Podcast Network Insights.
I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you.
So you made it this far. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Allow me now to at least give you my 2 cents and some additional information and context based on what you just heard. As I said at the top, this was a masterclass on living and finding your purpose. If you didn't walk away inspired on how Adam runs his business, on how he's thinking about just being of service, then you didn't make it that far and you're probably not listening to me right now. But there's so much to walk away in how Adam's operating. To understand someone who started in radio and then furthered his career and says, I would still be doing this, that I've had the opportunity to sell my business, but I love what I'm doing, that the industry continues to evolve, but as long as I continue to serve, this is what I want to be doing. So when you sit here and you listen to what Adam and I just discussed, hopefully this inspires you, whether you're an operator or you're an individual podcaster, you start understanding, what do I want to do? He also talked about grinding. That the industry here is you have to keep working. So even if you decide to join a network or stay independent, the work is always going to be on you. If you're a network operator, you get that. You've got shows that are always trying to get more from you, and you have to continue to grind and stay ahead. But always go back to living your life purpose. So once again, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. The show is produced by Stories and Strategies. I'm using RSS.com as my podcast hosting. Northflow is for my project management. Cast Magic is the tool I use for the content repurposing. As I say, life is about time and relationships. You have no clue where one conversation is going to take you. This is why I'm able to have this show. This is why I network for a living. And you're able to tune into these conversations. You have no clue where they're going to take you. So please, I live on LinkedIn. Reach out. I have a newsletter. As we talked about during this show, discovery for podcasts is incredibly difficult. So tune into that every Monday. And until next time, keep listening. Thanks a lot.